Well, this session is entitled Going Further for a Greater Cause. And except for Joe, I don't know anybody on the panel. My name is Rob Gilbert. But I think one thing, we're going to hear about some amazing people who are doing some amazing things. And once I went to a talk on, there's a whole new field of sports psychology called positive psychology. So at the end of the talk, somebody said, well, what is positive psychology? And the guy said, well, 3 words, it's about others. And I think the people on the panel, they really embody that. It's about others. And one thing, even though I don't know the people, one thing I could actually guarantee that everybody that, whatever they're doing here, it all started with one idea. You know, somebody had an idea, they put it in motion. And so you want to tell us about, I mean, we're all here because of you, Joe. So how did you get the idea to start this whole Team U and the whole conference and all that?
So I guess the panel is really an embodiment of this entire conference, so really happy that everyone is out here. It's ultimately all about using endurance sports and using your talents and passions for a greater cause. So when I was younger, I started getting into running and triathlons and raising money for charity and coaching other people to do the same. And it's always been an incredible blessing to be able to have a passion for something and have that passion contribute in some sort of positive way to the world. And I think that over here, everyone in the audience today, everyone has different talents, different skills, and however they can contribute to the world and use their passions to make a difference in the world. That they should perhaps take some wisdom out of here. How people fundraise, how people have figured out how to really make it work. And so I guess in terms of Team U and the National Endurance Sports Summit, it's all about making the world a better place through your passions. And obviously, here a lot of that centers around endurance sports, and especially on the panel here today, we have some incredible people who have done absolutely tremendous things, and getting to realize that with a greater cause in mind, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. You can scale summits. You can run marathons across every continent, whatever it might be. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah. And I know the thing from being at this last year and this year, the thing that totally amazes me about all these absolute superstar athletes is they don't think what they do is a big deal. Like a 100-mile race is not a big deal. Running in 5 continents is not a big deal. Well, thank you so much, Joe. So let me introduce the panel. On my far right is Dennis Murphy, and founder and president of the Friends of Jacqueline Foundation. And this really deals with children with brain tumors. So Dennis, you want to tell us about the Jacqueline Foundation, please?
Sure. First of all, it's a privilege and an honor to be here. When I get the call, I'm like, I'm going to Princeton to talk. I'm not a good public speaker, number one. I'm a brain tumor dad. My daughter, Jacqueline, was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor at 9. I had 2 daughters. Taryn was 7 at the time. Long story short, because we got a big panel here, she was playing sports. She was playing lacrosse. And coach called me back, said, where's Jacqueline? She came down with a malignant brain tumor. He reached out to Northwestern University. We live in New York, upstate New York, in Hopewell Junction, Chicago, obviously Northwestern. Some of the girls on the lacrosse team sent her a ball and a guy, they started communicating like this. And so we would get treated in Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City. The 9th floor of Memorial Sloan Kettering is the pediatric ward. And to me, that's where I started reflecting and processing my new world that I was in. And to me, that's where heaven helped me. That's where the good doctors and the caretakers who try to help these children, but yet the beast is there taking their lives. So one day, Jacqueline was text messaging with the girls in Chicago, and she was sitting next to another little girl, and I'm observing this. And I'm watching her sitting in hell, and she's oblivious to where she is because her mind's off of where she is. So she gets text messaging. The little girl from Poland gets called away for chemo. She turned to me and said, Dad, you got to get her a team. So that's when the light bulb went off. You don't go to school for this. I went to Albany. I was a business marketing major. I met my wife there. I married up. Smart. So I knew nothing about 501c3s, nothing. So I just knew I had to help these children. And so what we do is our mission is to improve the quality of life quality of life for children that are battling pediatric brain tumors and other illnesses and cancers. So we have over 600, I just did my 625th adoption in Division I, Division II. We pair children up with teams, sports teams, and now we're branching out into the arts and music. I just did the Whip and Puffs at Yale. It's an a cappella group because a child is blind, can't see sports. So we pair them up and they get love, support, and friendship. But it's, I'm going to fast forward. So we have 625 kids in 34 different sports, Division I, II, III, junior college, high schools, all over the country. I get bombarded by the media. HBO did 2 specials on us, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. So I'm still choking. I got a backlog of 1,200 teams that are waiting to adopt. The thing that really intrigued me coming here is Princeton. I'm doing an adoption tomorrow for the men's lacrosse team. But running, I ran the marathon back in '05 when Jack was diagnosed. And I ran for Fred's team, which is the Memorial Sloan Kettering team. And I raised money, 26.2 miles, and I was like Eddie Dad when Jack was first diagnosed. I'm like, I got to get a cure. I got to raise money for the cure. So I run the 26.2. I raised like 4,000 and went to the big pot. And I said, where'd the money go? And they said, oh, it went to adult tumors. And I was like, the son of a gun, you know. So I was pissed off. So the next year, I said, he said you have to earmark it. So I earmarked it to pediatrics. The next year, I ran it again. And as I'm running, and that's when it hit me, I'm like, I've got to change my mission. Right? So our mission is to improve the quality of life. So I'm about what can we do for children today, not tomorrow or a year or 5 years from now. What can we do for them today? So by pairing them up and giving them that love, support, and friendship, they get a group. Most of these children will never be on a team again, or will never be able to play at the level of these college teams. So that's what we do at Friends of Jacqueline, and we're growing out. I'm happy to say Jacqueline was diagnosed at 9. She just turned 21. Yeah. September 28th, so I'm the luckiest guy in this room. While we've adopted 625, we've lost 125. So, you know, my world, I come here and I look at like I live in your world. I work in your world, but I live in my own because I'm 24/7, 365 with this disease, and it's not something I look in the rearview mirror. So I don't believe in the word remission. I got my guard up. I'll never take it down because this cancer is so insidious that it will lead to other tumors and you know, reoccurrences and relapses down years down the road. So I'm very, very guarded, but it's a privilege to be here. I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, it's a privilege to have you. Can you tell us one story about how being adopted added to the quality of life of one of your children?
I got it. Well,
I know you have 600 stories.
Yeah,
right?
I've got a ton of stories. Here's an ironic one. We're sitting at Princeton. The Princeton men's basketball team adopted a little boy named Crunch. He was 10 years old. He sits on the bench every game. He goes into hospice. Then he passes, the team's winning every single game that he's sitting on the bench. He goes into hospice. They lose towards the end of the season in the Ivy League. They tied with Harvard, so they're co-champs, but they have a one-game playoff to get into the NCAAs. So Crunch passed. His favorite guy was number 23, Doug Davies, so they buried him in his jersey, his Princeton jersey. And so we go to the game, it's up at Yale. So Harvard's playing Princeton at Yale. First time I've ever been in an Ivy League game, and it's like geeks gone wild. We have more U.S. presidents, we have more Nobel Prizes, Peace Prizes. They're going back and forth. Look, the game comes down to the last 6 seconds. Doug Davies, number 23, hits the game-winning shot. He buried his jersey in. So Alec, his brother, the junior at the time, is at the game. They let him cut down the net. People, who's this guy cutting down the net? So Coach asked me to come to the first round game that they're playing against Kentucky. Kentucky's seeded number 1, Princeton's number 16 in the bracket, down in St. Petersburg. We go down there and Princeton takes them to the last 23 seconds, and I tell the coach I can't keep taking days off from work to do this. He said, you got to come the next one if we win. So Alec, who cut down the net, Jacqueline, next year is a senior in high school, and I can't find her a date to go on the prom. So I developed a relationship with this family, and I talked to Matt. I says, I kind of phone a friend. You think Alec will take Jack into the prom. So boom, no problem. He comes all the way up. We live up in Hopewell. He's down here in Princeton. He goes up, takes Jack into the prom, and wouldn't you know, Alec is a senior at this university. Okay, everything coming full circle. Alec applies to Princeton. He's in. He's now a senior at Princeton. Jacqueline's a senior at Marist College, small school up in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, the quality of life is, I can't put it in words. I've had doctors tell me, hey, what are you doing to this kid? All these parents are coming in, and what are you doing different than we're doing here? The occupational therapy, physical therapy, but something with this, and she's spending time with the team. So there is power in the love, support, and friendship. And I really believe that there's no chemotherapy and there's no radiation treatment or clinical trial drug more powerful than love, support, and friendship. And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned in this journey.
Wow. Unbelievable. Well, next to Dennis is it Kaysen Crane? And Kaysen is a real live Princeton student. And what year are you in?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. And you founded the Summits Project, and the Summits Project raises money for the Trevor Project.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what the Trevor Project is?
Yeah, so basically I started a fundraising initiative called the Rainbow Summits Project that was seeking to raise money and awareness for a suicide prevention service for LGBTQ youth called the Trevor Project, which is the leading suicide prevention lifeline in the United States for LGBTQ youth. And it offers a number of other fantastic services. So my project was to climb mountains and in the process raise money and awareness for this great organization. So I climbed the 7 summits, which is the highest mountain on each continent, and raised $135,000 for the Trevor Project. And yeah.
So well, you didn't just raise money, you raised $130,000. Yeah, I mean, that's a little different. So Mount Whitney, is that?
No, so Mount Denali, now officially Denali in Alaska,
Yeah.
Everest, Kilimanjaro, Aconcagua in South America, Vinson Massif in Antarctica, Elbrus in Russia, and Karsten's Pyramid in Australasia.
Huh. So did you, before you had this idea, were you a mountain climber?
Yeah.
And
Not the most active mountain climber, but I loved climbing. I came up with the idea while I was in the mountains, of course. And you know, I just thought this is such an incredible sport. Mountaineering is just, you're out in the wilderness and you're scaling these peaks, and it's a personal challenge, but it's just, it constantly reminds you of how small you are. And in addition, it forces you to deal with real obstacles. And I just thought, well, you know, mountaineering is just a great metaphor for kind of the everyday struggles, the everyday kind of putting one foot in front of the other that young gay kids go through on a truly daily basis. And so I thought, why not, you know, leverage this as a way to raise awareness for this really, really serious issue and to raise money, of course. So that's.
and who is Trevor?
Well, so the Trevor Project is named after an Oscar-winning short film, a fictional film from '94, and the filmmakers made this short film about a young gay kid who attempts suicide, and it's oddly enough comedy, but it's a serious comedy, obviously, because the message of it is, you know, not to give up and to keep going. And so what the filmmakers realized after the film came out in '94 was that they had this great product, this great movie that had a really important message, but they realized that if a young gay kid like Trevor, the fictional character in the movie, watched the film and identified with him, he or she would have no resource to call on, no obvious resource that he or she could access if he or she needed it. And so they decided to take upon themselves to start this, you know, the first 24/7 free and confidential suicide lifeline for LGBTQ youth, and that was I think that was '97, and it's been almost 20 years, and they're doing great work. They've got, you know, suicide prevention text messaging services, instant messaging services. They've got a huge database of kind of question and answer, or, you know, frequently asked questions, but like 100,000 of them that are searchable. It's a really, really great service. They're kind of constantly on the cutting edge of what suicide prevention is and can be.
Yeah, very good. Let's give him a hand. Well, if you were here yesterday, you met so many record holders. I mean, the most 100-mile wins and ultra marathons in 50 states, 50 miles in 50 states in 62 days. This might be the most impressive. This is Nicholas Tuchek. Is that pronounced correctly? Now, where do you go to college? At age 11, he became the youngest person ever to complete marathons on each and every continent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's give him a hand for that. So, how many continents are there?
7.
7 continents. And so what cities were you in?
So I ran one in Lewis, Delaware, Brisbane, Australia, Punta Arenas, Chile, it was Victoria Falls, Africa, Antarctica. It wasn't a city, obviously. Kazbegi, Georgia, in Asia, and Switzerland in Europe.
Yeah. So in Antarctica, were all these organized races, or did you just
Yes. Yes.
So there's an organized Antarctic marathon?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you must be one of the world's youngest philanthropists too, and you are currently running marathons in each state to raise money for the SIVA Foundation. So how many states have you run marathons in?
I've run 18
18.
states so far.
And tell us what the SIVA Foundation is.
Well, the Saver Foundation is a foundation that tries to help kids that have that are gone blind, and they raise money to stop and prevent treatable blindness.
And is there any particular reason you picked that foundation?
Well, I picked that foundation because my dad is an eye doctor, and I just couldn't imagine being blind, and everyone uses their eyes every day, and that would just be devastating not to be able to use them. So I just thought that it would be great to, do what I love, which is running, and help people at the same time.
Huh. Is your dad here?
Yes.
Oh, let's give his dad a hand. Well, I can't wait to hear more from you. Just totally amazing. I go to a lot of meetings and conferences and seminars. This is my second year here. I meet more amazing people here than the rest of the conferences put together. I mean, just unbelievable. And Teresa Roden. And if you out front, I think there's some I Try.
Yeah.
So what was your initial idea for beginning this foundation?
Well, and once again, I have to say, I'm just blown away by this whole concept, and I'm so honored to be here. The basic idea came from my own experience. I always say I was this girl that we work with. We work with at-risk adolescent girls who do not consider themselves to be athletes in any way, who have issues of low self-esteem, family issues. We've dealt with girls who come from abusive family situations, homeless, a girl who recently lost every bit of her family and was living in foster care. And so my own experience was I had a similar experience as a kid myself. I was just not an athlete. I never considered, I hated gym class. I was the girl who was always picked last for volleyball or kickball, any of that. And it wasn't until I myself was in my 30s and saw these lunatics running down the beach in Block Island, and they had numbers in Sharpie on their arm, and I said, what are they doing? They're jumping over sandcastles and people are cheering. And somebody said, oh, it's the Block Island Triathlon. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do that next year. Of course, everybody who knew me looked at me and said, no, you won't. And right, what did we hear this weekend? Tell me I won't do it, and I'm going to do it. And so all of the themes that I've heard this weekend just resonate so much with me, that that challenge, that accountability. So once I put it out there that I was going to do this, all of a sudden I attracted everything I needed to make that happen. I attracted friends, and we trained together, and things that were scary, I just took little steps. And the one thing I resonated so much, so I've heard this over and over this weekend, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I remember hearing that on race day, that first day. And the race itself was magical. I had that moment that most of you have. You've been, set a goal, and then you train for this goal, and every thought and everything is working you to this goal. And somewhere along the bike ride, I went, oh my God, this is it. I'm really doing this. It was like that really moment. And so I crossed the finish line, and it was an amazing experience and all of it. And then I had that, well, now what kind of moment. And I really realized that everything for me changed the minute I set that goal. For the first time in my life, I was saying to myself, instead of, oh, you're so slow, you're never going to be able to do it. I knew if I kept thinking that way, I could never reach my goal. And so everything changed. My thoughts, my internal dialogue, everything had to change. And so for the first time in my life, I was saying to myself, it's okay, you were faster than yesterday. Hey, you know what? You're a pretty good swimmer. You know what? Look at you get up that hill on the bike. That's what these thighs are for. You're strong. And my internal dialogue absolutely changed. And so I became the biggest proponent of anyone can do this. Anyone can try. And we would have meetings at the Y and just encourage anybody to start thinking of yourself as an athlete. Because when that changes, everything can change for you. And so kept doing races for a while, and then my own daughter, who's here right now, she was getting into middle school. And I would think to myself, God, if I could have learned all of these lessons when I was in middle school, and how many of you remember how tough middle school is, right? Middle school is pretty tough. Yeah, if I could have learned that I am resilient, that I am strong, that all the negative thinking that I had always done was just such a waste of time. If I could have learned all of that, if I could have learned that there's people out there who are willing to support you and help you achieve your goals, and then in doing that for others, how good that feels. If I could have learned that as a middle school girl instead of waiting until I was in my 30s. And so that's sort of where the idea came from. And we went to her school, and that first year they gave us the blessing to go ahead and do this. And I'm with my daughter, who is one of those girls, and two of my most amazing coaches, and together we created this magical experience for these girls. So girls who if when we said what the goal was, they looked at us like, you got to be kidding me. No, I can't swim. Nobody ever taught me how to ride a bike. And we got them there. I said, you know what, don't worry about that. We're going to take the first step today and the next step. And not only do we train them physically, but the most important thing we do is we work on their self-esteem. We work on their empowerment. We work on their self-efficacy. We work to bring them together so that they know how to support one another. And now, 7 years in, we have girls who've stayed with us year after year and have become the most amazing leaders and mentors. We were able this year to finally hire 2 of those girls as paid coaches. They wear bright pink shirts with the word coach on the back of their shirt. And they are like rock stars to these younger girls who look at them and say, wow, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to aspire to. Very quickly, a story of how it's just grown, and that whole support thing is, we had our race this year. And when we do a trial run, we do a run through, and one of the girls basically had a panic attack during the bike portion of this run through and had to be taken back. And she was so frightened that she would now not be able to reach her goal. So one phone call to a girl who had that similar experience herself and had made it, I called this young woman, Maria, and I said, Maria, this is what's happening with Sarah. Can I count on you? Can you come to the race? Absolutely. She was at that race. She stuck by Sarah's side. She was watching her swim the whole way. They ran up to transition together. They both got on bikes. They did that whole bike ride together. Sarah was happy. Sarah was calm. They were chatting. They get back to transition, and Maria's ready to run with her. And I have the greatest picture, if I could show you at some point, of Sarah, just this huge smile on her face, taking off, telling Maria, I got it now, I got it. And she just ran, and it was the most wonderful experience, not just for Sarah and all of us watching that, but for Maria to be able to take what had been given to her and give it to someone else. And that's what all of this is about, right? We're so passionate about what we do, and when we hear each other, it just fires us up to do more. And we teach our girls, it's in the giving that you receive. And that's basically what we're all doing today. So anyway, thank you.
You're passionate.
Yes. Get me going on
Could you
freestyle.
introduce your coaches?
Yes, absolutely. This is Sharon Cobb, and she is a youth triathlon coach. She's also a personal trainer. She's going to become a parkour instructor because I don't know if any of you guys did that yesterday. It was amazing, and
Yeah.
it's something that we're going to be integrating into what we do. So I'm super excited about that, and thank you for having that available to us. And Amanda Foscolo now. She just got married. I never know her name. And she is not only the most amazing swim coach, but she is a uber athlete as well. She's a marathon swimmer and so inspirational to our girls. And Abby Roden, who, yes, she is the girl who's dreaming about being president. So,
Amanda, why don't you come up here?
yeah. Come on.
Come on. So tell us a story about a girl that you know you made a difference in her life.
I had a swimmer. We had 5 non-swimmers this year. Do you mind if I sit down?
No.
We started the year off. We have 4 schools now, by the way, and we had 5 non-swimmers, which was quite a challenge. Never been in the water before, and she. Through the lessons, I knew that she could swim, and she actually, when she felt confident, she was able to swim beautifully. Extremely strong kid.
I mean, how long did it take?
To get her to believe that she could
Or
swim,
get her
or
actually,
to get her to actually
swim?
I would say maybe 5 or 6 lessons. She actually would push through and feel confident in the shallow ends. And so on race day, to bring it to race day, I didn't want to be the coach to stay next to her in the water. They were in water above their head, so
Yeah.
we have lifeguards that are there at the race for them, and I teamed her up. I gave her her own lifeguard, and I told the lifeguard, I said, she knows how to swim, she has a beautiful stroke, but she's just scared, and she'll always stand up. And the lifeguard said, I'm going to get her to swim, and she gave her the torp. And she held her hands on the torp, and she swam the whole way just holding the torp.
Wow.
And that was very special to me, to have her do it without walking.
Yeah.
And it's always those girls that after, when you say, the ones who struggled so much at one particular thing, you say to her, what was your favorite thing about the race? The swim, right? The thing that was the hardest for them, they're the ones. We have one girl, one of our first groups, who the swim was so hard for her, absolutely. Then the second year she raced, and her mom, she was out of the water. She did it so fast she was out of the water, and her mom's like, I don't see her, where is she? I'm like, she's already gone. She went on now to be a lifeguard, and she volunteers at our trainings. I mean, so these are the differences that, we live on an island, so my goal is that every kid should be comfortable swimming in open water, because man, it changed my life when I realized how beautiful and calming it is to swim in open water. And so the fact that they love it so much that they want to give that to somebody else is huge. And I'm going to say one more thing, but I've been sitting here listening to super amazing uber athletes, and the thing is about endurance, that what you guys get from running a marathon or climbing mountains, we're able to give to young girls, because even though it's a short distance, it's still an endurance sport, and it's still a huge goal. So I think anybody can do any of these things, but it starts with that first step.
But you're saying with stuff that they're pretty convinced they can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a quote that goes, the more difficult the obstacle, the more the joy in overcoming it.
absolutely.
So Sharon, you want to tell us a story?
I don't have a story necessarily, but really what happens in schools a lot is the sports are ball sports, right? So a lot of these kids are not coordinated with balls. They're not kicking balls. They
Yeah.
don't want to throw a ball. They don't want to, get involved with the sports because it's rackets or whatever. So, we try to tell the girls that they can be sporty and not, have to dribble a ball. So, these are life sports, right?
Yeah.
They're running, biking, swimming. So, we just want to instill in them that you can exercise, you can be sporty, and it can be an individual sport. You don't always have to be on a team. Just do something for yourself and feel good about that.
I just do want to add something to that, just from my own personal experience. My daughter's 12, and she can rock climb, but she can't ride a bike.
So I can't wait
That's
to
gonna
give it to Sierra.
And I said, Sierra, you're on next year.
There's a theory I really like. It's called the theory of 250, and meaning that all of us have 250 friends, colleagues, neighbors, teammates, classmates, whatever. Meaning, if you go to a wedding and you go in the back room and they ask the caterer, how many people here today? Yeah, about 270. If you go to a wake at the very end, you sign how many people signed the book? Probably about 230. So it averages 250. So what I'd like to hear from all of you, because right now you might be saying I'm speaking to 50 people, but you're really speaking to more than 10,000 people. So could you tell us how we could help you? How we could help you and who we could put you in touch with? I do this with my students all the time. I say, what internship do you want? And somebody says, oh, I want to work for the NFL. I said, who here knows somebody in the NFL? Nobody. But who here knows somebody who knows somebody? And there's always somebody who knows somebody. So how could we help you, Dennis?
Well, you've already done it. We've had 2 children come out of their bedrooms because they know I'm coming to the summit. So, check. I mean, and you change lives. And nobody in here knows these children. You'll never meet them, but you change your life. That's powerful. We have a partner, and I'm sure the women in the room might know this. Anybody ever hear of Alex Nani?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah,
It's a bangle. And our logo, our trademark, which one day will be as significant as the pink ribbon, and when we get to that point, we'll make an impact on research.
Yeah.
But the focus right now, again, is quality of life. And I've also learned that the cure is going to come from somebody that's in the program. It's already happened. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I can't tell you how many student athletes have called me and said I'm going to med school and into research because of my experience and relationship with my adoptee. But the Alex and Ani, they have a bangle with the elephant head on it. So if you ever in the store, get that, or it's a great gift, and it's inexpensive. It's $28. It's recycled. It's made here in the United States. Great company out of Cranston, Rhode Island. But to me, it's not a piece of jewelry, and it's not arm candy, as they call it. To me, it's an instrument that changes lives, because if you wear it or give it to somebody, they're going to talk about Friends of Jacqueline, and that word's going to get out, and other children are going to come out of their bedrooms all over the globe, and you're going to change their life. So that's a small thing that you could do. It's a great gift.
Yeah.
And if guys, great gift for your wife or your girlfriend or anything like that.
And specifically, what is it?
It's a charm.
Oh, it's a charm.
It's a bangle with a little charm on it, with our elephant head. Jacqueline loves elephants.
Oh, I see. Now, do you need more teams to adopt, or are you overrun?
No, I have, hip is my biggest nightmare. I'm the whack job that calls up a hospital talking about brain tumors, and they're like, I don't think so. So I need help from coaches and people that are in the healthcare world, nurses, doctors, anybody, any connection like that into a hospital to get me in and share our program. We're getting enough visibility to the point where we're right up there with Make-A-Wish. So social workers and child life specialists are really the keys that present the programs to these parents when they have their child come down with some type of cancer.
So do you have more teams than kids?
Now I do, yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is totally unbelievable.
It may always be that way, but unfortunately, there's more children out there than there are teams.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Now, do high schools do this, or do you just?
Yes.
So, high school teams?
Torrey Pines High School in San Diego, the men's lacrosse team, New Trier in Chicago, Arlington, where Jack went to high school, in New York, Poly Prep in Brooklyn. We got a lot of high schools. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So how can we help you, Casey?
Well, I mean, I think the number one thing that I always say is that what's most important is that everybody is aware that suicide, especially in young people, is much more prevalent than you think. And that it only takes one person to be that friend that saves a young person's life from a totally preventable thing, totally preventable death from suicide. And so, I would urge you all to make sure you're checking in regularly with your friend, with your family, especially people that you think, might not be feeling so hot or might be a little bit down. Because, it's amazing how one conversation can change your life. So that's definitely the top thing. And the second thing is, a lot of people, or I guess this is true for a number of different, important issues, but they don't necessarily feel connected to it unless they happen to have a personal experience with cancer or suicide. And actually, I lost a friend, Charlotte, suicide when I was in high school, which was the original genesis of the project. But I'd urge you to, check out the Trevor Project, know what resources they provide, and if you, feel moved to consider supporting the Trevor Project, because it's a really important organization, and, can use all the support it can get. So that's right.
Do you have anything you're personally doing as a fundraiser in the near future?
Well, this whole project has been about raising money for the Trevor Project. So since I've been at Princeton, I have kind of eased off from the fundraising. It's pretty hard to balance everything. But all I can say is that it's a fantastic nonprofit, and that it doesn't have to go through Rainbow Summits as long as it's getting to the Trevor Project. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So Nicholas, how can we help you?
If you go to my website, it's nickrunstheworld.com, and that's
Nick
NIK.
runs the world?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Run, like
run.
physically run,
Yes.
not power run. Okay. I think you might run the world one day. Nick runs the world.
There is multiple donate spots you can go. You click on it, it brings you right to the SEVA website. You can learn more. There's tons of information. And it just doesn't just help kids, it helps everyone around the whole entire world. I mean, I think it was Nepal that they just had an earthquake or something, and a lot of people went blind from that. And the treatment it's only like $50 or less, you can donate anything and everything will help. Support even if you can't give money, just spreading the word would help a lot. So.
What's your next activity? Are you running a marathon or anything?
My next marathon is on November 7th in North Carolina. So. Yeah.
Where are you going to go to college?
I want to go to Baylor in Texas for baseball.
Oh. Yeah. So you also play baseball?
Uh-huh.
So, Dr. Truchek, give us a recipe for raising a kid like this. I mean, this is not the typical kid.
Well, I think part of the problem is most parents get in their way.
Yeah.
I think he expressed a desire. He'd run his first half marathon when he was 9 years old in Lancaster. And as we were driving home, he'd come up with this brilliant idea that he wanted to do a marathon in each of the 7 continents. And sometimes as parents you play devil's advocate. And, you encourage them, but you don't think that it's really going to happen. And a couple days later, I called the race director in for the Antarctica race, and I was telling the story, and I thought for sure that he was going to shoot me down because he was 9 years old, and the youngest person to run down there had been 21. But the guy said, wow, he says, I wish that I had dreamt like that when I was 9.
Yeah.
He says, send in your application, I'll sign. There's a 4-year waiting list. So. Wow. In 4 years, he can run the race. So I hung up and I was like, my God, I signed him up for his 7th marathon already. So we kind of pushed the schedule ahead a little bit. He ran his first marathon at 9. And then a week later, we get a call back from Antarctica saying that there were 2 cancellations and that he wanted to go in like 8 weeks. So it was one of those things where as parents, you're thinking maybe he's too young, it's too far, it's too cold. And we just thought that this was, divine intervention. So let him go, and
So the first marathon he ever ran was in Antarctica?
No, that was the first time he ever left the United States. He ran his first one December 1st, and then in February he ran in Antarctica.
So your second marathon was Antarctica?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What was the temperature?
It was the middle of summer down there, so it was about 32.
Jacket and shorts.
Unbelievable. So Teresa, how can we help you?
I've been helped already being here. My coaches have been exposed to amazing new ideas and ways of thinking. We've made connections with the presenters here. Hopefully some of them will do some work, even if it's remotely with our girls, because to expose them to any of this stuff. I have cards outside that have races that we do out on Long Island. Those are totally, our youth race and our adult version of the race is the same distances. Our kids race a 300-yard open water swim, 7-mile bike, and a 1.5-mile run, which is huge to them. In return, we do the same thing for adults, and so many of these girls' parents, especially, it happens usually the second year the kid is involved, they're so inspired by this transformation that they see in their own daughter that they go, I can do that, and they try it, and that leads them to do longer distances and more. So it's that first step into, and like I said, anybody can do this, anybody can do.
Is anybody in other parts of the country replicating your program?
There's a similar program called Girls on the Run that does, they lead up to a 5K. And it's, but as far as I know, we're the only ones doing it for triathlon at this point. Yeah.
So Joe, how can we help you?
So like most of the panelists have said, I mean, you folks have already helped me. I do have a question though.
Well, but tell us about specifically what Team U is.
So Team U is an intercollegiate fundraising endurance organization. We're a nonprofit and 501c3, and we started off as a student group here at Princeton that got students involved and recruited them to run half marathons and raise money for a children's hospital in Eldoret, Kenya. So it's a way of having people get involved, leading a healthy lifestyle, feel empowered to make a difference in the world, and actually contribute to a great cause. So they would reach out to friends and family, and so that's been nice. We're growing that. So if you have
Team U is spread to other colleges?
Yeah, so we're at about 10 other campuses, including
So
in Paris.
how would, if another school, if somebody here from like Kane University or Montclair State, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can. There's a contact page on the website, or they can hit up info@teamu.org, whatever it is. It'll go right to our inbox, and we can set up a chapter there. But I really think the most fundamental thing that you can do to help is more broadly just like contributing with your passions to the world. And I mean, there's so many points also along the way where they're like challenges, but if you can just lock on why you're doing what you're doing, then you can make an incredible difference in the world. And so like one of the questions I had is like, what was the most challenging moment in starting or fundraising, or perhaps your most difficult case or something that like you just couldn't figure out? And because that would help me incredibly, and be inspired and give back as well.
Well, everybody can answer that if they like.
Making the first phone call when I came up with the idea in the hospital, I'm like, okay, I got to go call somebody and tell them what my idea is. So I called up this coach from my alumni, right, in my college. I graduated from Albany, and it didn't go good. I mean, it was the worst phone call. I felt like I hung up the phone and said, I'm selling this. I shouldn't be selling this. They should just be like, yeah, I want to help a sick child. So I did a terrible job. And it was like a cold call. It was the fear factor of making that call and then going to the next one. And I finally got to the point where I just took a brain tumor mom and I said, trust me on this. Just trust me on this. It helped Jacqueline. I see a difference in Jacqueline already. Trust me on this. So she said, okay, I'll let my daughter, I'll talk to her, participate in the program. And then I went to a coach face to face, and I said, give it a shot. This is what it did for Jacqueline. UMass was the first team on after that. And then I had two, and I built off of that, and I was like, and then it just started growing and growing.
UMass was the first one?
Yes.
What team?
Well, Jacqueline was Northwestern Women's Lacrosse,
Yeah.
Which they won 7 national. That's why HBO came. She inspired them to win. Northwestern hadn't won a national championship in 64 years. It was men's fencing back 64 years ago, and the women's lacrosse team won a national championship, undefeated that year when they met Jacqueline, and they were inspired by her, and they won 7 out of the last 12 years.
Huh.
So, yeah, it was Northwestern first, and then UMass after that, and then it just started snowballing.
So you have a difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Joe, the toughest moment, I mean, other than convincing my parents, was definitely, so I was trying to climb the 7 summits, and so that's like to the top, right? You can't just, generally, you can't just say that you went halfway up, and you obviously didn't summit if you didn't get to the top. So I had a year and a half to do it, and the fastest people to have climbed the 7 summits have done it in just under a year. So there wasn't much room for error, because you can't just climb, like Everest, you can only climb in April and May every year. So I climbed Denali for the first time in, that's giving away the ending a little bit, in July 2012. And after a month on the mountain, a really tough month, in which I was stuck in a blizzard at high camp for a week, I didn't summit. I couldn't summit.
And what's that like? Being in a blizzard?
Stuck in a
Yeah.
blizzard. I mean, I could show you some video. It's tough. You know, you're sitting in your tent basically the whole day and night with your 2 tent mates in this tiny space, snacking. And thank goodness we have technology that allowed me to listen to music, because I think otherwise I would have gone crazy, because all I would have heard was the whir of the blizzard outside, the flapping of the tent. It was not good. But what was most frustrating was we were so close. We were so close to the summit, and yet so far, because you couldn't summit in a blizzard. And by the time the blizzard abated a little bit, we just had to get down safely, because obviously safety is the most important thing. So I got down to the base of the mountain, and I was like, oh my gosh. This, you know, I've climbed 4 of the 7 so far, and this is it. I can't do it anymore. I failed, right? I didn't make it to the top of Denali, so I can't climb the 7 summits, right? And I had this really difficult, well, I guess it was a couple days, but I was just struggling with this idea that I had failed. And then ultimately, it challenged me, or the reason it was so challenging was because it forced me to reassess my standards for what success and failure were. And I had to force myself to kind of think bigger and realize that not getting to the top of Denali did not mean that I failed. And that it was just, you know, one more obstacle that maybe I'd be able to overcome, maybe I'd get to the top. Even if I didn't, I still could complete the project, attempt the other mountains, and consider it a huge success because of the awareness I had been raising, the money I had been raising, and because of my own personal journey to reach these mountains. So I went through the rest of them thinking that I might not be able to go back to Denali, but then luckily the next summer I did get to go back, and I very narrowly made it to the summit, made it, and then quick weather rain. That was the last of the 7 for me.
Yeah. Now, when you get to the summit of Everest, how big is the actual top of Everest?
Well, so Everest is luckily there's a relatively big area. It's probably, I mean, the actual summit is obviously tiny because it's, you know,
Yeah.
a tiny little thing, but they have a big bundle of prayer flags on
Yeah.
top, like Tibetan prayer flags. So that's the kind of holy, it's a holy mountain. And so the summit, I'd say it's probably 15 feet by 15 feet is
Really?
the kind of area that what you would call the summit.
Yeah.
That's great.
So Nicholas, have you ever had any breakdowns?
I guess the hardest part for me was not so much the running. I mean, that's the easy part. I guess it was when I first got started, everyone saying like I couldn't do it and stuff. Like you're too young, you can't go that far. How are you gonna raise that much money? You're just a kid. So I learned when I was really young at 9 that you don't have to be big to make a difference. That whatever you put your mind to, you can do it, and you know, if you just keep trying, you can accomplish anything.
At 9. Will you come and talk to the class? Amazing.
So do you have any,
I would just say, it comes from an idea and passion, and I started this. I loved your comment. I didn't know anything about a 501c3, all of that. The first year it was an idea and we did it, and it was the girls themselves who said, no, we have to keep doing this. Every girl needs to experience this. And so then it led me on this path of, I was a preschool teacher and kindergarten teacher. That's, my background, and I knew nothing about, now I'm in this world of nonprofit management and fundraising and all of this stuff, which, is not my comfort zone at all. And so, that, I'm sure that was probably the biggest challenge. But I've also found that when you have an idea that's working, you do attract everything that you need to make that possible. And so we've attracted amazing people who help us and support
Yeah.
us.
so any questions from the audience?
Yeah, Nick, I like what you're doing. I think it's pretty neat. I met a little girl named Winter Nikki who
Oh,
you
yeah.
know of. Awesome young lady. She's done great things, continues to do them, so hopefully your path will lead in the same direction. But I met her in Kenya, and I was running an ultramarathon, part of the TV show, and she was there to run her marathon. I can't remember what number it was for her. That was obviously her African marathon. But what really struck me about the experience was the sheer number of children that were participating in this race. It's called the Amazing Maasai Ultramarathon, and they run everything from half, full, and then a 75K ultra. And there had to be like 6-year-old children competing in this half marathon. And for me, it was kind of a myth-busting moment, because we grow up in North America with exactly what you're saying. You're too young to run marathons. What your dad was saying, geez, is it safe for my 9-year-old to be going out and running this far? Well, I can tell you that these kids were running pretty damn fast, and they had no problem running this distance. And, you know, it's a lifestyle thing. So I'm just curious to know if you've had any experiences like that that have kind of broadened your mind. Because for me, traveling, experiencing the realities of other cultures, it's been my biggest education. I mean, far more than years of school.
Yeah, I guess whenever you know, I go anywhere to run, I mean, there are always kids out there that like are on the course not running but like cheering everyone on, and they're like, wow, he's my age and he's actually doing that. And that's like really cool to me, that maybe that after seeing me they can maybe do it next year, you know, if they start to train and stuff. And like when I was in Africa, in Zimbabwe, I went to this shelter, and you know, I had like an extra pair of running shoes, so I gave it to this one kid, and he was like, I'm gonna go put this under my bed, I'm never gonna let it out of my sight. And then I actually saw him at the race the next day wearing my shoes, and like it was just amazing, and that just felt really, really great to me. Like all these kids that are his friends, like admiring his shoes. And I was like, that's just like great. So I was really, really glad I could, you know, help in any way I could, you know. Maybe he was doing, I can't remember what distance, it was like 5K or something. And he was like, oh, you're doing the marathon, maybe I can do that in a couple years or something. So yeah, it just things like that is what makes all the struggles and everything like that worth it, you know.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was wondering, Teresa, can you talk a little bit about the organizational design of the nonprofit?
In terms of our work with it, we offer it for free. We work in conjunction with public schools, so they help us to select the girls who would benefit most from this program. We don't receive funding for the school. They just give us that support, some classroom space, and a little bit of transportation. We work in conjunction with our local YMCA, and they've been super generous to us to give us the pool time. We pay our coaches, because I firmly believe that not only do they deserve to be paid, but you know, it's the safety and well-being of girls doing, you know, tough stuff. I have 60 girls on bicycles. I need to know that my staff is going to be there, because volunteers are great, but I can't always count on them to show up. And so the program is for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls. It runs from February through July, so it extends past the end of their school year. There's a huge amount of commitment. They participate in over 300 hours. We support them in school, out of school. We do hands-on family nutrition and actual, you know, on-the-course training. So it's truly life-changing and transformative experience for them.
I'm curious about the business design, how the business.
It's completely. You know, it's a nonprofit, and so we do a lot of grant writing, a lot of fundraising on our own, and 2 big events that, you know, we've got a ton of grassroots support, and we have a lot of interest in what we're doing. So we're getting calls from other agencies who want to support us as we expand
So
And
you have like a board,
yeah,
and you have, are you the director?
I
You have
am
a
the,
leadership team?
I am the executive director. I cannot be, I'm not really a board member, but I'm an advisor to the board. And the board has the leadership and fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're doing everything correct.
Well, we're out of time. I'd just like to end with a little anecdote. The great psychiatrist, Dr. Carl Menninger, who started the Menninger Foundation in Topeka, Kansas, he was once asked, what do you do if you're depressed? But not just depressed for one day. What if you do if you're chronically depressed? He said, oh, very simple. Leave your house, find somebody to help, and help them. And I think each and every one of you are not just helping someone, you're helping someone's. So let's give them a big hand.